is our good pal Joey Dine of the Tampa Bay Times. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm doing great, buddy. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great. You sound great. How's the weather out there?
Hot and humid. I like working on my back porch, poolside, but usually about 12:30 or 1 o'clock, I got to take it inside.
I hear you, my friend. I hear you. So the big news, obviously, with our USF Bulls, Michael Kelly going elsewhere. Did this surprise you at all?
It surprised me initially, but then when I thought about it for about 5 to 10 minutes, it made complete sense. If you know Michael Kelly's background, he was born in Washington, D.C. His father, Dennis, was a 1967 graduate of the Naval Academy, served in Vietnam. Michael went to an all-boys military institution, Annapolis. He spent some time there in his youth. That's his stomping grounds. That's his home. So I think this was a really great opportunity for him that doesn't come along very often because Navy doesn't replace athletic directors very often at all. So it was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. And if you think about it, Jay, think about this. This is something that also came to mind after the fact. At the service academies, there's no NIL. There's no pay-for-player revenue sharing. And for an athletic director, I imagine that's got to be an enormous potential headache that you don't have to deal with. Which doesn't mean that the service academies aren't striving for excellence in athletics. They are. Navy was 10-3 in football last year. USF can attest to how good they were. But, they're never going to deter from their primary mission statement, and that's to prepare young men and women to lead, the armed forces. So I think it's a very understandable move for Michael Kelly at this stage of his life. He can work 10, 12, 15 years there and retire at a place that he loves.
Yeah, it's a great point. And talking to Michael, even just a couple of weeks ago over at the baseball tournament, you could just tell, like, maybe it's different now because you look back on it, but it just seemed like, I don't know, he had his mind elsewhere. And I'm sure this is something that he was keeping an eye on. How long do you think he was mulling this over? Do you think this is something that just happened, or what do you think?
Well, the AD, it wouldn't have happened if the AD, Chet Gladchuk, the AD at Navy, had resigned. And he had been there a quarter century, so it would have been a moot point. But when Chet resigned, and, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm sure he and Michael are probably pretty close. Michael may have inquired about it and picked Chet's brain. But again, when this opportunity arose, I'm sure Michael looked at it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because Army, Navy, the Air Force Academy, those are pretty stable places. There's not a lot of administrative turnover. So Michael said, if not now, probably never. So, it would have happened if the previous AD hadn't retired, and Michael sees the opportunity.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You're right. I mean, you look at this situation and go, I don't have to worry about my job security, and good for him. I think it has to do a lot more with Michael as a person, right, rather than what he can do NIL-wise. And it is ironic that he was really on the forefront of NIL and the transfer portal early on in his USF career, and now he doesn't really have to worry about it, which is kind of funny. Now the kind of the attention turns to now, Joey, is who's on that short list. And I know I read a great article with you with some of the names on there. I know Lalo Prado is another guy that I know is not only in contention for this job, but the job over at the University of Tampa for their athletic department job that Larry Marfis, he's out now. Who are some of the names that people really need to keep an eye on, whether it's inside South Florida or outside?
Well, first and foremost, whoever gets this job has to be a fundraiser. That's what it's all about these days. Common sense will tell you that. We're in the revenue sharing era. Starting July 1st, I believe it's July 1st, colleges are legally permitted to share revenue with their athletes at an annual cap of up to $20.5 million a year. So whoever takes this job has to be able to raise money because that money is just not, that kind of revenue is just not going to arise in a puff of smoke. That's the main prerequisite of any athletic director. They can find associate ADs to handle the administrative stuff and the scheduling stuff and things of that nature. The main athletic director, among other duties, prominent among his other duties, is being able to raise money. people around the area internally. Jay Stroman, the interim athletic director, was a very successful fundraiser at Georgia prior to arriving at USF. And last I checked, Georgia had some pretty good athletic success, especially in football. Another name that's been thrown around is Rob Higgins, who has just done wonders as the executive director of the Tampa Bay Sports Commission. He's brought every major national sporting event and some global sporting events to Tampa. They have been staged in our backyard, whether you're talking WrestleManias or Super Bowls or college football playoffs or women's Final Fours. And Rob, over time, has developed an enormous network of contacts with people on sports' biggest stages and in sports' biggest realms and associations. He's a USF guy through and through. Used to be the men's basketball team manager. He's an alumnus, very engaging personality who I think would be very effective in raising money. There's a couple of outside candidates. I would keep my eye on a couple of associate ADs at Tennessee who are working under Danny White. Danny White did a great job at UCF, whether USF fans want to admit it or not. And at Tennessee, he is, I think Tennessee's athletic success, men's basketball,
right,
baseball, and of course football, speaks for itself over these last few years. People have given me a couple of names of associate ADs at Tennessee to keep an eye on. So there will be some external candidates. I'm sure this is going to be a national search. When it's going to be filled, I don't know. Fortunately, we're kind of in the lull period of the college sports calendar. But again, July 1st is coming, and that's when the revenue sharing era dawns. So I imagine it would be sooner rather than later, but I'm not certain.
Yeah, and now obviously needing a president too. It's kind of an interesting.
Right.
We're in a big time of change when it comes to South Florida. Do you, if you think, who do you think would it be better if it's in-house with the knowledge of the program, or do you think it's better, out and having some new ideas? What do you think would be better, Joey?
If Rhea Law were still the president, I think an internal candidate would be a no-brainer, or someone in the Bay Area. And I think that still might be the case. What I think has worked for USF in the last several years is they have a board of trustees and administration and coaches who are all on the same page, who are all aligned with a common purpose, and that's to really excel not only in academics but athletics. USF, what they did under Judy Genshaft in making academic strides speaks for itself. USF has made tremendous academic advances, but there are always rumblings about they could do better in athletics. Under Rhea Law, this board of trustees, this current set of coaches, they were aligned with a mission of getting athletics up to, if maybe not the same level academically, getting it near to where they are also elite academically. Well, I think that this board of trustees is going to find someone, a president, with that same kind of thinking. And obviously, when that president is hired, I don't know if it'll be before or after they hire an athletic director. Certainly, they're going to try to find administrators that are on the same page, who are all in line with, it's time to raise our profile athletically for the next round of realignment, whenever that comes, to give us the best opportunity to get into a power conference, whether that's the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC, whatever that may be 5-7 years down the road.
Yeah, and that's something that really stood out to me. I think it was Will Weatherford that spoke at Brian Hodgson's press conference about that, about how other, you see, unfortunately, programs around the country getting rid of sports, and USF was, no, this is a priority for us going forward, and they understand the money that can be made, when you do this right, and especially that's the message that you have to send as you're building an on-campus stadium for South Florida, and also them putting out a social media post about this whole thing with the money that needs to go out. And man, you look at this, this entire system here, baseball, softball, Joey, they have to stay on the forefront here. Don't with the Athletics. They have to keep pushing because at the very least, like there's a lot of good coaches and there's a lot of good teams right now within the entire program.
Yeah, and from what I've heard, they send out this statement saying we're ready, we're poised for the revenue sharing era, we're ready to be competitive. Everything I hear, that's just not lip service. They are poised to compete to a certain degree. Can they allocate $20.5 million annually to their athletes? Probably not. I mean, let's be realistic here. This is not a Power Four conference. The media rights revenue that USF gets annually pales in comparison to what, say, Florida gets from the SEC or Ohio State gets from the Big Ten. But from everything I've been told, they are financially positioned to be competitive where they're at. And there is a directive from the American Athletic Conference. The new commissioner, Tim Pernetti, has basically issued a directive that our schools over the next 3-year period are going to spend a total of $10 million in salary or money to its student athletes. How they dole that out over that 3 years is up to each school. $3 million the first year, $3 million the second year, $4 million the final year. But that's a directive that USF must comply with per AAC, standards. And from everything I've heard, USF is going to spend more than that. And, part of their revenue sharing includes fully funded scholarships now. Nice. And, you're a college baseball fan, Jay. Forever, college baseball programs have had to give out, distribute 12 scholarships among 25, 30 kids. Nobody in college baseball gets a full scholarship. Yeah. Now they can. So that's a huge boon to a guy like Mitch Hannes, the first-year Bulls baseball coach, or Ken Erickson, who's been the softball coach forever. So, I'm excited to see how this can elevate USF athletics. On the flip side of that, let's be realistic. Nobody's swimming in money. Nobody has a bottomless supply of money.
Right.
USF not only has to start paying its athletes to a certain degree, they still got to pay the mortgage on a new on-campus stadium.
Right.
How they're going to do that, once that stadium is up and running, there'll be some revenue streams there, concerts, presumably more ticket sales, naming rights for the stadium, but that's way off in the distance. How are they going to pay these athletes now? And that's why they need to bring in an athletic director whose main prerequisite, main advantage, number one criterion is being a quality fundraiser.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Joey, before I let you go, I want to ask you, because one of the things I love that you do with the Tampa Bay Times is you do such a great job at looking at the collective and looking at all the different sports and all the different coaches in our Bay Area. I wanted to get your 2 cents on what Joe Urso and the University of Tampa have done. 10th national championship. I was up there in Cary over the weekend, but for you that's been here in the Tampa Bay area and seen so many great teams and so many great coaches, how do you put into words the impact for him and the Spartans and just how good they are and, just the great spotlight they put on our community?
I think it's the greatest dynasty, college or pro, in Bay Area sports history. 10 national titles at that university. And how many for Joe now?
He's got 8 of the 10.
8 of the 10. And, it's not like he's doing it with the same nucleus every year. There are some guys, who are holdovers, but it's like every other place in the country. You've got to refurbish your roster every year, bring in new people, and hope those new people gel with your system and your philosophy and your culture. And Joe and Sam Militello, his right-handed man, they do it year after year after year. I think it's incredible what they do. I wish, they were held in higher profile by the Tampa Bay area in general as it stands. They're a Division II university. So that they don't get the attention that, certainly they warrant. But in my mind, it's the greatest sports dynasty, college or pro, that the Bay Area has ever seen. And I'll tell you what, I don't see an end in sight anytime soon.
You got that right, my friend. Yeah, it's pretty wild. He played and got 1, and then now he's coached 7. He's got 8 of the 10. The one and only Joe Urso, the one and only Joey Knight, TV Times _Bulls. I say this a lot whenever we have our friends from the Tampa Bay Times on. Please support our local newspaper, the Tampa Bay Times. Subscribe today. Get it as a gift for somebody. Every little bit goes a long way. So please, again, support our friends at the Tampa Bay Times. Joey, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you for making the show a whole hell of a lot better. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. Take care.
You got it, man.